My daughter stood in front of a crowded table, wearing the sparkly gold dress she picked out herself. Her small fingers clutched a gift box. Every adult in the room was laughing, glasses clinking, caught up in their own noise. No one noticed her, except me. I watched her closely as she stepped forward, eyes fixed on her grandmother. Then, with a voice clear as glass, she said, "Grandma, Dad told me to give this to you if you ever ignored me again." The room froze. Forks stopped midair. The music faded into useless background noise. Lorraine, my husband's mother, gave a tight, fake smile. A little laugh, like she assumed it was a joke. But when she opened the box, she didn't laugh. She screamed. A sound sharp enough to crack the air in two. Louder than the Christmas carols, louder than the gasps, louder than the silence that followed. People rushed to see what was inside. But I already knew. My husband packed that box months ago. He told me it was for the day his mother went too far. That day had come. Let me tell you how we got here. How my daughter was erased in plain sight, how her presence became a shadow at every family gathering, and how one small box shattered the brittle smiles and false warmth that held this family together for far too long. When I married Travis, I thought I was joining a big, loud, loving family. There were cookouts, game nights, and extravagant holiday parties. Lorraine was the center of it all, commanding, sharp-tongued, full of opinions that ended conversations rather than started them. I mistook it for strength. I wanted her approval. I tried hard to earn it. At first, I thought I had. She smiled at dinners, complimented my cooking, hugged me goodbye. But it didn't take long before the cracks showed. She'd forget to include me in group texts. She'd mention how different I was from the women in their family. She'd say it with a smile, so I'd question whether I was imagining it. That's how people like her operate. Then came Zia. My daughter from a previous marriage. She was just 2 when Travis entered our lives, and he loved her without hesitation. When we got married, he adopted her. She became his daughter in every way that mattered. We never used the word step in our house. She was his. He was hers. But Lorraine never accepted her. She pretended, at first. She'd bring Zia a birthday card or a cheap holiday trinket. But the difference was clear. Zia wasn't invited to cousin sleepovers. She didn't get the matching Christmas pajamas. She sat on the edges of family photos and behind the crowd at gift openings. Lorraine would coo over Maddie, her little princess, and shower Jonah with expensive sports gear. Then she'd hand Zia a dollar store puzzle or a dusty book. Something meaningless. Zia noticed. Kids always do. I tried to protect her heart with lies. I told her grandma was forgetful, that she loved her in her own way. But each year, the lie grew harder to defend. One Thanksgiving, Lorraine gave each grandchild a personalized plate with their name painted in gold. Zia's seat was set with a random dish from the back of the cabinet. That night, Zia whispered, "Maybe she thinks I'm just visiting." I had no words. Travis heard it too. He didn't say anything, but I saw the way his jaw tightened. That was the first time I knew he saw it. Still, we kept showing up. I told myself we were doing it for the memories, for the cousins, for the idea of family. I told myself love didn't need to be proven with gifts or matching pajamas. But deep down, I knew I was lying. I stayed quiet so I wouldn't be seen as the problem. So Travis wouldn't have to choose between me and his mother. Every time I swallowed my hurt, I told myself I was being the bigger person. I didn't see what I was teaching my daughter. That being overlooked was something we had to endure in silence. Travis and I argued about it more than once. We spoke in hushed voices after Zia went to bed. He said he noticed, said he didn't know how to handle it. He didn't want to hurt his mother. And I asked, what about Zia? He promised to talk to her. Eventually. And then silence. By the time Christmas came around, I was raw. I packed matching outfits for the kids, baked extra cookies, wrapped thoughtful gifts. I told myself, maybe this year will be different. But something inside me had changed. I no longer hoped for approval. I was watching, waiting, preparing for the moment when silence would no longer be the kind choice. It came faster than I expected. Lorraine handed Maddie a brand new iPad. Her eyes sparkled with pride. Jonah opened a set of collector baseball cards. He shouted with joy. Then she handed Zia a half-open pack of hair ties. Used. Zia looked at me. Her eyes said everything. I saw Travis glance away, his shoulders rigid, his mouth in a hard line. That's when Zia stood up in her gold dress. That's when she walked to her grandmother and held out the box. She had waited long enough. Everyone did. The gift inside? I'll never say what it was. That's part of the beauty. It was personal, specific, something only Lorraine would understand. But it burned. That much was clear. It wasn't just a box. It was a reckoning. A lifetime of whispers, fake smiles, and silent exclusions collapsing under their own weight. Zia didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just turned and walked back to me, quiet and whole. And Lorraine? She finally saw what it looked like to be ignored. We left shortly after. No one stopped us. No one knew what to say. Later that night, Travis put Zia to bed, kissed her forehead, and sat beside me on the couch. I should have done something sooner, he said. Yes, I replied, but he had packed the box months ago. He just hadn't known when the moment would come. Zia did. She chose it. She ended it. And in that moment, I didn't feel shame or guilt. I felt peace. Because sometimes revenge doesn't come in rage or fury. Sometimes it wears a gold dress and carries a small box. And sometimes it's exactly what love looks like. The days that followed were quiet, too quiet. No apology came. No phone call. No explanation. The family group chat, once filled with exclamation points and emoji hearts, was silent. No one asked if Zia was okay. No one asked if we were okay. It was as if by refusing to play along with the performance, we'd forfeited our place in the audience. But I didn't regret it. Not when I saw Zia in the mornings, brighter somehow. Not when I watched her laugh at something silly again. Not when I realized her eyes no longer flicked nervously toward the front door before a family event, waiting to see if today she would matter. The truth is, that little girl had carried more poise and strength in her sparkly gold dress than a room full of adults playing pretend. Lorraine didn't reach out. She didn't ask to talk. And I didn't offer her a chance to rewrite the story. She had written her part in permanent ink. But there was one person left who hadn't said everything he needed to say. Travis. He sat with Zia a few days after Christmas. I didn't hover. I stayed in the kitchen where I could hear without intruding. I should have protected you, he said. I saw it. I just didn't know how to stop it. But you did. You stopped it for all of us. Zia didn't respond right away. Then, with a voice just like mine, measured, soft, firm, she said, "You don't have to protect me from now on. Just stand next to me." And that was the beginning of something new. Travis never spoke to his mother again. At first, I thought it would be temporary, a cooling-off period. But he never dialed her number, never responded to the vague message she sent weeks later, the one that said, "We all make mistakes. Family is still family, but family doesn't erase children. Family doesn't make a child feel invisible. And when they do, that child has every right to speak." Months passed. Spring bloomed. The silence from his family remained, like a stubborn winter that refused to thaw. But our home grew warmer. We started our own traditions. Zia helped us paint eggs for Easter, real ones, not the plastic dollar store kind. On her birthday, Travis let her pick the cake and stayed up late building her gift. And when summer came, we booked a cabin near the lake, not with extended family, not for approval, but just for us. No more pretending. No more fragile smiles. Just us. And Zia? She no longer sat quietly in the corner at gatherings. She didn't have to, because there were no more rooms full of people pretending to care. Instead, She ran barefoot through wildflowers. She read her stories aloud without glancing for someone's permission. She picked her own sparkly dress, this time purple, and wore it not for them, but for herself. That's the thing about revenge. People expect it to be cruel, loud, destructive. But sometimes, revenge is a child reclaiming her place. A mother choosing truth over politeness. A father finally waking up to the damage his silence caused and deciding to speak. And sometimes, revenge looks like healing. Not for them. For us. For her. It was nearly a year later when the letter came. A thick cream envelope with looping cursive address to Travis. No return address, but we knew. Lorraine's handwriting was like her voice, dramatic, elegant, and demanding to be noticed. Travis found it in the mailbox one morning and brought it in like it was something delicate. Poisonous, maybe? He didn't open it right away. He just stared at it for a long time. I watched him from the kitchen, not saying a word. He finally sat down, broke the seal, and read silently. His expression didn't change, but I knew him too well not to notice the twitch in his jaw, the slow exhale. When he was done, he slid the letter across the table without looking at me. I thought you should see it. It wasn't an apology. Not really. It was a performance disguised as remorse. Lorraine wrote about how she missed her son and how families drift apart. She claimed she hadn't realized how fragile things had gotten and how misunderstandings happen, especially with blended families. She even mentioned Zia by name twice, carefully, as if the words themselves might shatter. I never meant to make her feel left out, she wrote. But she's not mine the way Maddie and Jonah are. That's just a fact. You can't expect love to be the same when the blood isn't. That sentence sat like rot on the page. Travis read it again, out loud this time, and then laughed, but not the kind of laugh that reaches the eyes. It was short. Hollow. He set the letter down, reached for the lighter from the drawer, and without ceremony, lit the corner of the page. The fire caught quickly, curling the edges inward like a dried leaf. He dropped it into the sink and let it burn to ash. He didn't look at me. He didn't need to. Because we were past the point of needing to explain why some bridges shouldn't be rebuilt. A week later, Zia came home from school with a question. Is Grandma ever going to be part of our lives again? I knelt down beside her, brushed the hair from her eyes, and asked gently, Do you want her to be? Zia didn't answer right away. Then she said, I think I wanted her to love me before. I think I tried really hard. I nodded, letting her speak. But now I think. I don't want to try that hard for someone who doesn't want me. I just want people who already do. And just like that, she'd named the truth most adults run from their whole lives. Travis came into the room then, and Zia looked up at him. I want to go somewhere just us this Christmas. Somewhere far. Travis smiled. Wherever you want. And so we did. That December, we didn't unpack matching pajamas or perform for anyone. We didn't force ourselves into someone else's idea of family. We went to the mountains, built a fire in the hearth, made cocoa with extra marshmallows. Zia brought her sketchpad, drew the trees and snow-covered rooftops. Travis taught her how to build a snow fort. I read novels by the firelight and finally, felt peace settle inside me like warmth after a long storm. On Christmas Eve, Zia pulled out a tiny wrapped box. She handed it to Travis. He raised an eyebrow. What's this? She smiled. Something for the days you forget how strong you are. Inside was a tiny note that simply read, Thank you for standing next to me. He didn't cry. But he held that note like it was a gift no one had ever given him before. And in a way it was. Because this story wasn't just about revenge. It was about clarity. About knowing when a door doesn't deserve to be knocked on again. About giving your child the kind of love that tells her she never has to earn her place at anyone's table. She can build her own. Set it beautifully. And invite only those who know how to stay. Epilogue. Years later. The house was quiet again, but this time for a beautiful reason. It was early morning, the kind of morning Zia loved, dim blue light spilling through the curtains, the world not quite awake. She stood at the kitchen counter, hands wrapped around a warm mug, watching her own daughter draw at the table with crayon-smudged fingers. The girl looked up. "Is Grandma coming today?" Zia smiled, a soft, wistful kind. "She is. But not the one from the stories I used to tell. A different grandma. My mom." The little girl nodded and went back to drawing. Zia's eyes lingered on her daughter for a moment longer before walking to the back room. On the shelf, nestled between books and old photographs, was a small wooden box, the same box she'd held in gold-covered hands all those years ago. She hadn't opened it in a long time. But today, something told her to. Inside, the contents were simple. The crumpled wrapping paper, the note Travis had written and tucked beneath the original item that once lived inside, a symbolic gesture not meant to be read until much later. She unfolded the yellowed paper. It said, "You deserved more than silence. I gave you what I could then. One day, I hope you'll give yourself everything." She sat down, clutching it to her chest. There was no bitterness now, no heat of injustice. Just memory, still sharp, still true, but no longer burning. That box had once been a spark that lit a match that burned away the lies. But now it was a reminder of strength, of survival, of love that refused to be quiet. Later that evening, her mom, grayer now, slower, but just as strong, arrived with her usual arms full of hugs energy. The room filled with laughter and warmth and the kind of safety Zia used to think only existed in books. As they sat down to dinner, her daughter passed her a little gift wrapped in bright red paper. "For you," she said, beaming. Zia opened it carefully, her fingers brushing the edges of what looked like a tiny gold crown. Cardboard. Glued sequins. Child-made. The note inside read, "Because you're the queen of our castle." Zia laughed, a deep, real, unafraid laugh. She looked around the table at her daughter, her mother, her husband, who was stirring gravy like it was serious business, and realized something quietly profound. She had broken the cycle. She had made a home out of truth, not tolerance. Out of presence, not performance. And though she'd never again see Lorraine, never again walk into a room where she was expected to shrink for the sake of peace, she had no hatred left. Because that woman had no power here anymore. Not in this house. Not in this life. Zia had chosen differently. And the sparkle in her daughter's eyes? It wasn't for approval. It was the reflection of generations of women who learned that love, real love, never makes you beg. It just stays.